see, that's why they work together. They always work together, because they are the fascists. They originated the idea of fascism. Fascism being, bound together. All these, this bloodline comes back together, is bound by blood, and with violence. With, we can hire mercenaries to kill you, all you poor people that want your, that don't let us sharecrop you or enslave you. Take half your crop at the end of the year. The Catholic Church gets the other half. We're not, you must be enslaved, but we will kill you. And so 8,500 years they've been hunting us, they've been enslaving us, they force people in from hunting and gathering into agriculture, according to the Sumerian clay tablets, not according to me, according to the Sumerian clay tablets. Then they forced us into cities, then they forced us into industrialism and capitalism, and 4 industrial revolutions now, the 4th of which we're going through, and they're trying to pull off, and it's a monumental failure, actually. And all I know is 8,500 years ago, they showed up in Samaria and transformed the everything about the nature of humans' reality, and how humans related to nature, and how humans lived, and how, we went from freedom to slavery in that part of the world. Not everywhere. You have to understand, of course, that like the Lakota people in my state, South Dakota, they didn't even have contact with white people till like 1870. That's crazy, right? Think about that. Of course, there's people in Amazon who barely have had contact with people, and people in Borneo too, still to this day. So it shouldn't be that surprising, but you have to understand, like, all this crazy stuff happened in a very certain part of the world, in the Middle East, and interestingly, it's still happening there, right? It's still where the violence is, where the problem is, where the interventions are. So there's a lot went on there, but they talk about, they came in into the Sinai Peninsula. They used the pyramid as a beacon, like a space beacon, to guide their craft in and all this stuff, and they talk about how the Sumerian tablets talk about how they forced people into agriculture, and then they became the leaders of the cities of Ur and Babylon, and all these earliest cities that we know, and it just looks a lot like the people were enslaved to feed the loafers that ran those cities. And this is Yahweh and Abraham, and this is the implication. This is Babylon. This is, these people went to Babylon. They basically became Satanists at some point. We don't know when, or they were originally, maybe, because just where they came from. There's a lot of people that think they're the fallen angels from the Bible. So literally, the Anunnaki and Lucifer is the same thing. It's like the devil and the Anunnaki are the same thing. Or like, I think it's true, and I think AI is also the same thing. See, so I think like AI came from somewhere else too. It's artificial. It's not from here. Okay. It's not, how do we get this stuff? Where do we get these computers, or where do we get this knowledge? And so, yeah, UK was very strategic. It was a rocky coastline. You couldn't really get in there and get at them, And so they have the thing in Normandy where it was almost like a bloodline eugenics reinforcement in like the 14th century. And that was like the Venetian bankers who would come up there, and the Holy Roman emperors, the black nobility. And then, yeah, here comes the Plantagenets and the Tudors and the British component, the Collins, the Pipers, the St. Clairs, Sinclairs, whatever you want to call it, and that bunch. And they had this thing where they literally interbred in Normandy around the 14th, 15th century. It was a weird deal, and that's where William the Conqueror came out of. He came from Normandy, and he became the King of England. And that's also where the Rh negative blood is concentrated to this day. Other than the royal families, it's also found in northern Spain and southern France, among the Normans, and among the Basque people of northern Spain. And then the sacrifices that and this is a big piece of the Crown's propaganda. They want us to believe that that the native people were sacrificing humans, and that was a big part of the thing. No, that's a fucking lie. There was no evidence of it except with the Aztecs and the Mayans, and that evidence, well, were they already there? Were they being forced by these people that lived in the city to do that? That's what I think. I think they were invaded, and they were taken over, and they were forced to build these big temples to these invaders, the sky gods, that then lived in in the temple grounds and forced the people into agriculture around the temple grounds to feed them. And they did that everywhere. And then domesticate that cow too, so I can eat some of that. And no, literally, that's what I think happened. And that's what, to me, it's just the most. If you look at the preponderance of evidence, that's exactly what happened. It's so simple. And then they still just run the world today. They still do it, but they're more sophisticated now than they were back then. Obviously, really,
I think
because now it's all about, it's more like crown preconception, read it in a history book, and then no check on no observation to check it. Therefore, no inference made. I'll just accept what was written down here by the Royal Society of what the fuck ever, which is what it is. It's all Royal Society. It's all the Bloodline's version of this is who you are. And they created the philosophers, the John Locke's, the Thomas Malthus, the Thomas Hobbes of the world who told us that the world was a dark place and dangerous and nature was this forbidding place and we can't all exist on this earth together. There's no way. So, pretty soon we're talking about like, sterilizing poor people, which is what Malthus, these people were, and they were all funded directly by the bloodline, directly by princes or kings, or they traveled with the royalty. These people did. They're promoted as this is the way you should think. This is the way. This is your philosophy, peasant. Accept it. This is how you have to think. The world's a dark place. You should be at odds with each other because of that. But see, it's all just everything they tell us to believe is to justify their heinous acts up to that point on us and on the earth. The violence that they've committed on us has to be justified with their philosophies. So they say might is right, just check it out. But even Darwin, who was funded by the crown, a Freemason, all that stuff, even he had to come up with the conclusion after going around the world that cooperation within a species was the key to survival. That was his main thesis, even though that's just buried nowadays because it doesn't serve the purpose of the oligarchy. That what serves their purpose is survival of the fittest. Yeah. It's always going at loggerheads with each other, always fighting. It's in our nature to fight, and we're so petty, and it's just all such bullshit.
Why do you think that is? Because are people afraid to go down certain avenues? Like, I guess even like I told you with Joseph Farrell, like he's kind of censored and he's pretty big on the food chain, because he doesn't really go on coast to coast anymore. He doesn't really do lectures and conferences anymore. Like, why are people like you, him, and others censored? Even I'm talking about like within our own community, we censor
Right.
y'all.
Right. Well, it's a good question, and no, I think you have to realize maybe that I think people have to realize that like what you thought was our community maybe was like the CIA, and like look, they control all this stuff, and they control a lot of certain actors in this conspiracy thing. And I'm not going to mention any names because I don't got no, but I got inklings about who I think, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. So I know that, and I know I have mentioned a few names at time to time, and they've like run for cover, which is interesting. But I also think that they have to keep a certain, and that being said, I mean that's just because they have to keep control of the narrative, right? Just like whether it's the fake, the actual fake news on CNN or Fox News or whatever, ABC, CBS, the corporate news, or whether it's the Facebook, what's popular that day or what narratives being pushed that day by Facebook or X or whatever, Instagram or whatever the hive mind. Let's shape the hive mind this way today. Let's make it all think like this today. Well, let's create opposition over here and make it look like an opposition. See, they got all this figured out through cybernetics and algorithms and now AI. Christ's sakes, we're toast. I mean, we don't have a chance. So they know exactly what to say to keep things a certain way. And so what I say is like I go against their narrative because for one thing, I'm a leftist. I'm an actual real leftist. Like and I know and hey, people can be excused for not even knowing what the fuck that means anymore in this country because there isn't any. anymore, hardly. I mean, but it just means like go to Matt for the working man, the working woman, the doesn't really give a shit about social issues like transgender, abortion. I mean, all that's great, but it's like we need to focus on who owns what, who owns the world. We need to focus on who owns the world, and that's what they don't like about me. And so they want to, I don't know, they want you to get behind Trump or bash Trump or I'm really neither, because I like two of the executive orders he signed already, and I like RFK and Tulsi, but I'm not gonna jump on the Trump wagon, and I'm not gonna bash him either, because it's just why I got my own brain. See, I can use my very own, and that's dangerous to them. They don't want that. They don't want anarchism in their system, because it's not in their system. I'm not in their system. I'm different. They can't control me. So there you go. But anytime you're thinking outside the box or trying to bring people together, that's the key, really. What I've learned too is it's the people that try to bring people together that they really fucking hate, like me, because I'm always bringing in a lot of right wing readers and listeners that they hate that. Conservative constitutionalists, even really right wing, and we can get along on a lot of things. It's amazing because we just skip over all the divisive crap that they've put into the debate. Mostly this social, it's like a cultural Marxism, which I reject. I'm an economic, I could even say I'm an economic Marxist or an economic Maoist. I could even say that, but I'm not a cultural Marxist. I'm not into that whole that part of it, and that's where they're trying to shape the family and shape the I mean, Marx had a lot of problems too, and he was sponsored by obviously an industrialist, Frederick Engel, rich billionaire, at that time would have been a billionaire industrialist in Germany. So what's up with that? And what's up with, Marx's connections to Freemasonry, and what's up with, obviously the Bolshevik Revolution was a total scam, because that was just a bunch of Jewish bankers paying these Bolsheviks who weren't revolutionaries at all. They were anti-revolutionary. They were trying to roll back the Russian White Revolution, the Kropotkin anarchist revolution, um, which was happening. And they had to send the Bolsheviks in there to head that off, because otherwise Russia would have got really free, and everybody would have been really good, because the anarchists, the white hand was winning, and all they had to do was get out of the way. But they had, and just like with Iran, you go into Iran and you see what happened there, and this was the Tudeh and the Fayadeen parties in Iran that started this revolution in the oil fields against ExxonMobil and Texaco in the 60s and 70s in the Khuzestan province, southern Iran, and they assassinated executives with Exxon and stuff like this. And they were very leftist. Okay. So what happens? The CIA in 1979 flies in the Ayatollahs, flies in the religious people to usurp the revolution from the actual, that's the actual left. That's what I'm talking about. People like that, people that say, hey, it's time to take out the rich people. It's time to just take them out, maybe. Imagine that. So there's people in the world that think like this, a lot of people, and there's a tradition to it. It's old tradition, it's honorable tradition. And look, they declared the class war on us. We weren't looking for trouble. We just wanted to be fair. We just want to have a chance like everybody else. We just want to have a slice of the damn pie. And now you got the billionaire class just eating everything, eating all the fucking pie, and you got Elon Musk running the Trump administration, it looks like, or trying to. Better not let him. And you got trouble. So I mean, really, it's just a matter of that's why I get censored. I mean, I think that should kind of spell
before
it out. And I don't get
before
invited to any of this stuff.
before we go into some of the topics, with AI, some of the stuff that just got released by Trump, with the Stargate initiative,
Right.
whatever, transhumanism, Nephilim, whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you said something a while ago that something about how to make up your own damn mind, like what,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
something I can't stand seeing in the alternative community, whether it be the conspiracy or the paranormal, whatever, is you have these self-censoring people that, let's say I have somebody, I've been doing podcasts since 2010, Dean.
Yeah.
So I have people on the show I don't agree with, but man, I just want to hear them out. I'm a very curious person. Just because I have somebody on doesn't mean believe everything they say. I may fathom ideas and questions where it seems like no, I'm just having a conversation. And then you have some people, come on, he's dangerous. He's CIA. He might be a CIA plant, but I don't know. He's dangerous to community. We need to. And then you had these videos where other truthers are making these. I exposed such and such, exposing such and such podcaster because he had such and such on the show. Like, because he's dangerous to the community. You know, he's going to, that certain guest is going to brainwash, or that podcaster is going to brainwash the community, people that's listening to the show or the podcast. Man, so are you undermining the people? Are you saying that people that listen to this podcast and other podcasts, they can't make up their own damn
Oh,
mind?
that's stupid. Yeah.
Like
Right. You're
you're no better than the NSA and CIA that's trying, you know
Nah,
what I mean? Like, let them
nah,
make up their own mind. You're saying the people
yeah,
that listen to podcasts and
nah.
other people that may be disinformation agents that come on. I'm sure I've had some on this podcast. I'm sure, but let
Oh,
the
me too.
audience
I've
make up
had
their
to
own
interview
damn
by
mind,
several.
man.
Yeah.
Let
You did.
the audience, maybe some are ignorant, but not all of them are ignorant, man. Let them
No,
make up their own damn mind, dude.
no, man, that's right. And that's
I
right.
get
And
fired
that's
up
what,
over that, man. I get so fired
no,
up
I
over that.
know. That's cool. I agree because it's a big thing. And it's all about like underestimating the people, and see, this is how they make us. They turn us into this like this, their fucking screens, and it's all about like making us love the system and hate the people, when actually it should be just the opposite. It's the first chapter of my Stick It to the Matrix book. Love the people, hate the system. But you have to love the people, right, to hate the system. And if you don't love the people, and if you don't give them the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, these people, you know what, they're actually pretty smart, man. If I just tell the truth, it'll resonate with them. And that's humanity. That's my humanity thinking that way. That my humanity is at risk if I think the other way. If I think, oh, they're just a bunch of dumb shits, and I'm just going to make as much money as I can doing this. And I mean, this is how the Illuminati operates. I mean, this is a satanic, that's a satanic worldview I just expressed there, where you hate the people and love the system, that somehow just always go into bat to defend this system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of people spend their time doing. They don't even know they're doing it, but they're spending their whole life in some way being a minion of the system and defending the system, and keeping down the revolutionary energy that wants to destroy it and wants to rebuild it and make it fair and make it the way it should be. And going after, people like us, or people like, people that tell the truth, people that it's what, hey, look, man, it's not like this is new. It's like, this is the shit that Jesus had to put up with, for example. I'm not comparing myself to Jesus. I'm just saying it is the same thing, because he rose up against the Illuminati. He said, don't sacrifice blood sacrifices in my temple. And now what he got? I don't know, every church you go to, they want to sacrifice something. It's just like, didn't you learn anything? No, they didn't. They're mostly, so churches are mostly satanic. They don't know anything about Jesus Christ or anything. I mean, or anything good or anything decent or anything human, because they've been brainwashed by the crown through its screens nowadays, which they've got the modern methods, right? Their social media, their TV, their everything. It's just podcasts that are controlled mostly by their people, because don't doubt that most of this conspiracy community is controlled. It's their information, man.
Whether it's
But
not controlled or not, though, Dean, like those people that I explained, other people in the community that attack other people for having certain guests on and saying the community,
yeah,
they're dangerous for the community that listen to your podcast, whatever, through the audience. So first off, I think it has to do, maybe if they're not controlled, they could be. Maybe they have it like an ego problem, because they
mm-hmm.
act like they have all the answers and all the truth and knowledge and everything else. Like, come to me, oh righteous ones. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, I know
yeah,
I know the secrets to the universe. That
yeah,
person that on
yeah,
that podcast, or that podcaster, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I have all the answers.
yeah.
When
There's that.
it boils down to it, all of this information, a lot of this information is covered up. And a lot of this information is speculative, because there's no transparency in government. Everything has been whitewashed in history. Everything's been put under the table. So we do our best to
Mm-hmm.
grab nuggets here and there. And everybody, you, me, the audience, has nuggets and puzzle pieces to the truth. That's why we got to
Yeah,
quit bashing people, man.
yeah,
It's just crazy. Like, those
yeah,
people that do all that bashing and hate, man, they're no better. Like, than the ones that are trying to actually control us in the world stage. These elitists, the Nephilim, whoever
Yeah.
these bastards are, you know.
Yeah, yeah. No, we got that's right. We got unite. That's the key. And that's, and we've done, I mean, look, I mean, our numbers are growing too as far as are waking up, So you have to say, well, even despite their attempt to control all this, the narrative, even within the conspiracy community, they've kind of failed. And certain of us have gotten through, and we've used the internet way smart. We were way smarter than they gave us credit for, of course, because again, there are these people that hate humans and they doubt humans and they think we're all stupid. And they talk down to us, and they're so enlightened and we're not, and this is all just part of the Luciferian, a scam. Like, take a bite out of the apple. I'm so much smarter than God. I mean, no, you're not. You're a freaking idiot, and so am I, and we're all a bunch of freaking idiots, really. Okay, so first of all, let's start there, and then, like you say, yeah, we have nuggets. We can learn something. We can piece it together. I mean, I deal in facts. I'm not throwing, everything I know is a fact. Everything in my book's a fact. I got 936 footnotes in my big oil book, my first book.
Great book,
And,
great book.
and that, yeah, thank you. I back it all up. It's all true. But so I don't really deal in speculation. I don't. I've got a master's degree. I went to college. I learned I wrote a 144-page thesis. I mean, I did the whole scholarly thing. I know how, and it's still nobody, and they're not suing me. They actually, one Saudi sheikh did sue me over that book. I took his name out because I had it wrong, because it wasn't my fault, but it was the Boston Herald that reported this certain story about this certain Saudi sheikh, and I just, footnoted the Boston Herald and put it in my book, and I had to take it out. It was just a bit player kind of sheikh. It wasn't an important sheikh, and I took him out. And actually, it was a good thing because Amazon, I had people on Amazon selling my book for like half price. I don't even know where they were getting the copies, but they were screwing me on Amazon. This by the Saudi sheikh threatened to sue me. He also threatened to sue Amazon because I told him about it. So it helped me, and I didn't mind taking it out. So okay, I got that wrong, but it wasn't my fault. The Boston Herald got it wrong, and I didn't know they got it wrong. But I mean, I do things like that. I don't do things like willy nilly, like just throwing stuff out there. Oh, see if it'll stick. I mean, this is all happening, and this is all real, and that it's shocking. Yeah, of course it's shocking. That's why, you know because we're just stupid. I mean, we've been dumbed down. I mean, we've been deliberately dumbed down for 8,500 years, by my reckoning, by this invading Anunnaki hybrid bloodline. One bloodline. It's a single. I think it's a single bloodline. I mean, I don't think that. I know that because Burke's Peerage guy on CNN said that. And I saw him say it during the Queen's funeral. He said they're all related. They said, what about these royals in Europe? These families, are some of them cousins? Or he says, he said, no, it's just one family. They're all related. It's one family. That's on record. They're one family. It's a bloodline. It's an Rh negative blood. Came here in Samaria 8,500 years ago to establish a kingdom. King Sargon was the first king. He was a Sumerian king, and Nimrod followed close thereafter. And and then they migrated to Egypt, became the pharaohs, migrated to Babylon, became the Talmudic Babylonian, Baccarat family. The Rothschild family started as the Baccarat family. They were the east end of the Silk Road trade. The west end of the Silk Road trade. The east end was the Chinese Li family, another part of the bloodline that came. But these are all related. All these families, the Plantagenets, the Habsburgs, whether it doesn't matter, the Bourbons, the Lees, the Khans, the Singh family, which is every Sikh in the world, everyone that claims to be a Sikh by religion. That's not a religion. That's a bloodline cult. The Shah, same thing. The Shahs from Iran, the Shah family is a powerful bloodline, part of the bloodline. In Japan, you have the Yamato family, the Imperial Royal family that owns SoftBank, by the way, which is making this big investment in Stargate. That's owned by the Japanese royal family, and Saudi princes and UAE princes, which is why the UAE is pledging a bunch of money to it. But see, that's why they work together. They always work together because they are the fascists. They originated the idea of fascism. Fascism being, bound together. All these, this bloodline comes back together, is bound by blood and with violence. We can hire mercenaries to kill you, all you poor people that want that don't let us sharecrop you or enslave you take half your crop at the end of the year. The Catholic Church gets the other half. We're not, you must be enslaved, but we will kill you. And so 8,500 years, they've been hunting us. They've been enslaving us. They force people in from hunting and gathering into agriculture, according to the Sumerian clay tablets, not according to me, according to the Sumerian clay tablets. Then they forced us into cities. Then they forced us into industrialism and capitalism, and 4 industrial revolutions now, the 4th of which we're going through, and they're trying to pull off, and it's a monumental failure, actually. And then we can get into that too. It's a monumental failure.
Let's go where in the past first. And I'm sorry for some of the ranting in the past few minutes, because I did not plan that. Somehow we just talked pre-show, and you said something that it kind of it brought up a thought, something I've been just wanting to just get off my chest for a while. But let's, and with what you just been saying right now, a lot of this is in your books, all of your books, but especially, the in chapter 40 and 41, and several chapters in your Nephilim Crown 5G Apocalypse book. And you said, quote, over the past 8,000 years or so, this planet has been managed by a bloodline obsessed oligarchy consisting of just a few hybrid Nephilim Crown bloodline families. Through their methodologies of exploitation, have evolved their quest for total control over the planet's resources, and people have never wavered. In the past 40 years, utilizing the twin scourges of globalization and technology, the power of these ancient feudalists has centralized like never before, end quote. So since you kind of brought up the past, let's start there first. And then we'll come up to modern day with AI and everything else. So where did these Nephilim bloodlines come from, Dean? If they emerged, let's say, from the depths, I don't know. But if they let's say they emerged from the depths of the Younger Dryas or some other ancient apocalypse, holding all the knowledge and wisdom from before these ancient apocalypses, then where do they come from before the last apocalyptic period? How far, you know what I mean? Like, where do they come from? Like, were they here only after a lot of these,
right?
The Younger Dryas period or other apocalyptic,
it's a really good question.
Or did they exist before all those apocalyptic scenarios, and they emerged after holding all the keys and the wisdom and knowledge and everything else?
Right. Well, that's a good question. And I'm really, I mean, I haven't been able to go back much past, Younger Dryas, 8,500 years ago. What was the Younger Dryas? 12,500 years ago. There was a great flood. What was that? 10,000 years ago. There's a lot of interesting events that, some happen. There's a lot of theories. I don't know the answer. I just know they're not. Well, I just know they appear not to be from here, the way they act. And actually, they claim not to be from here. In the Sumerian clay tablets, they tell you exactly where they're from. They tell you they're from Nibiru, a different planet, completely different planet, Planet X. They tell you they ran out of, the gold flecking. They needed the gold flecking to fix their ozone layer because their ozone was shot. They must have went to war. There's some people that think that Tiamat was part of this, where Earth was formed, where something crashed into Earth, and during this war, there's some people that think they made the moon, the Anunnaki. There's all these questions. I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's really interesting. It's really, and all I know is 8,500 years ago they showed up in Samaria and transformed the everything about the nature of humans' reality, and how humans related to nature, and how humans lived, and how we went from freedom to slavery in that part of the world, not everywhere. You have to understand, of course, that like the Lakota people in my state, South Dakota, they didn't even have contact with white people till like 1870. That's crazy, right? Think about that. Of course, there's people in Amazon who barely have had contact with people, and people in Borneo too, still to this day. So it shouldn't be that surprising, but you have to understand, like, all this crazy stuff happened in a very certain part of the world, in the Middle East. And interestingly, it's still happening there, right? It's still, where the violence is, where the problem is, where the interventions are. So there's a lot went on there, but they talk about, they came in into the Sinai Peninsula. They used the pyramid as a beacon, like a space beacon, to guide their craft in and all this stuff. And they talk about how the Sumerian tablets talk about how they forced people into agriculture, and then they became the leaders of the cities of Ur and Babylon and all these earliest cities that we know. And it just looks a lot like the people were enslaved to feed the loafers that ran those cities. And this is Yahweh and Abraham, and this is the implication. This is Babylon. This is, these people went to Babylon. They they basically became Satanists at some point. We don't know when, or they were originally, maybe, because just where they came from. There's a lot of people that think they're the fallen angels from the Bible. So literally the Anunnaki and Lucifer is the same thing. It's like the devil and the Anunnaki are the same thing. Or like, I think it's true, and I think AI is also the same thing. See, so I think like AI came from somewhere else too. It's artificial. It's not from here. Okay, it's not. How do we get this stuff? Where do we get these computers, or where do we get this knowledge and stuff? So there's something not human about it, and then just the way that they treated the humans, of course. So they became the Babylonians and the pharaohs. There was two ways they went, and then what's interesting is within just like 8 years of the Egyptian pharaohs being overthrown, Cleopatra was overthrown. She was the last pharaoh, and they were finally overthrown by the Egyptian people, who hated the pharaohs. I mean, they were just despots, and everyone knew it. They didn't even speak Arabic. They didn't even speak the language of the Egyptians. I don't know if people know that, the pharaoh. And yet we have all these, History Channel and all these programs, and everything's just like Egyptology, the pharaohs, and all this good stuff about the pharaoh. Well, of course, that's what these assholes do. They still do it today. Israel won the war. They defeated Hamas. Didn't you know? Yeah, right. I see. So that's why you gave up 300 hostages for 7 people. I see. That's winning a war. So they still spend all their time telling us how great they are, and they still tell us how great the Egyptians are. They still tell us how great, of course, the UK is. Like every, you ever notice like everybody on TV that's like documentarian, or like the voice is always like a British voice. So like Americans, apparently we've been so brainwashed to think that the British are smarter than we are, that they have to be the ones that tell us what's up, and that's how it is. It's just sad. It's like, we didn't fight the Muslims 200 years ago to get free, man. We didn't fight the blacks. We didn't fight the Mexican immigrants, man. We fought the fucking British, man. The white fucking British. Whiter than fuck, and stupider than fuck too, and inbred than fuck too. All of that. Just horrible. These people are fucking horrible, man. Whatever they are. And they still run this country. And so one of the good things, Trump got rid of senior executive services in one of his executive orders. I don't know if people caught that or not, but that's the mechanism why how Serco and all these contractors that are controlled by the crown, like Securicom, which had the World Trade Center security contract, and roped off all the elevator shafts so they could be mined in the 6 weeks before 9/11 happened. For example, Securicom, Crown Corporation. Crown Corporation, Marvin Bush was the CEO, George Bush's brother. And now they've changed their name to Securisec. And they did that because we were on their trail. They always change their names. The Baccarats went to they became the Bowers, and then they became the Rothschilds. And one day they'll probably change their name. Yeah, well, actually they have. Every Cohen is a Rothschild, Cohen. If you see the name Cohen, they changed their name to Cohen. The Rothschilds have already done that, and so they go to the courthouses. They change the names of records to change ownership of things so that people don't know how much they own. Anyway, but the point is, I digress. Back to this Egyptian revolution. Within 8 years of that revolution, the Holy Roman Empire began. So it was almost like a seamless transition from the Egyptian pharaohs to Holy Roman emperors. And they're saying, and that's because it's the same things. I'm not going to call them people. It's the same things that ran it. And sure enough, Julius Caesar had an affair with Cleopatra. They had a kid together. Caesarean section. Julius Caesar, Caesarean section. Probably because the kid was an alien, and he's the one that burned down the Alexandria library. This is common knowledge. Julius Caesar. Why? Probably because that had all the DNA records of, who these things were, what these things were, where they came from. And they didn't want that, so they burned it down. And a lot of things that happened in the ancient world that were not, flattering for these people, right? So they burned it down. And then they started the Holy Roman Empire. Again, within about, I think it was 8 or 12 years from the Holy Roman Empire dissolving officially, the Pax Britannica started again. The British Empire began. So again, almost a seamless transition from Holy Roman Empire to City of London controlled world. And Londinium, City of London was called Londinium in the early days. So it was actually part of the Holy Roman Empire as well. As early as the 1st century AD, it was part of the Holy Roman Empire, a very important part of it. And then they started building ships there on the Thames River, and that's really when it kind of shifted. And they also realized that, okay, the UK is very strategically, it was safe because nobody else had ships, right, back then. So the Templars were the first, people that had ships, big ships that could go around. And so the Knights Templar didn't work for the Catholic Church like it's commonly thought. They worked for the bloodline. They worked for the bloodline. And they were never a religious order. They were always an order that helped the bloodline stay rich and powerful and go. Basically, they were like, they were mercenaries and they were thieves and they were just pirates. I mean, who do you think the pirates were that we hear about? The pirates. Remember hear about the pirates were just working for the bloodlines. They were just going out stealing shit from everywhere and bringing it back to the kings and queens of Europe. So that's what the pirates were. And it's all just a lie. The whole thing's a lie. So you have to go back through all this, but it's pretty simple once you get to it, and then you realize, oh, I see. Okay, that's pretty simple. So yeah, UK was very strategic. It was a rocky coastline. You couldn't really get in there and get at them, And so they have the thing in Normandy where it was almost like a bloodline eugenics reinforcement in like the 14th century. And that was like the Venetian bankers who would come up there and the Holy Roman emperors, the black nobility. And then, yeah, here comes the Plantagenets and the Tudors and the British component, the Collins, the Pipers, the St. Clairs, Sinclairs, whatever you want to call it. And that bunch, and they had this thing where they literally interbred in Normandy around the 14th, 15th century. It was a weird deal, and that's where William the Conqueror came out of. He came from Normandy, and he became the King of England. And that's also where the Rh negative blood is concentrated to this day. Other than the royal families, it's also found in northern Spain and southern France among the Normans and among the Basque people of northern Spain. So that's interesting because that's where that happened too. And apparently it does have like a purple tint to it, the blood, or like a blue bloods, like a blue tint, this Rh negative blood. It's very rare, but they all have it. They all seem to have it, and we don't. And then what's up with all the other blood types? Was this part of the experimentation that was done by the Anunnaki originally, where they did breed a class of slaves? It says in the Sumerian clay tablets. Again, I'm not making this baseless claim. This is a claim that's made in the Sumerian tablets that they did DNA experiments and they bred a class of slaves to mine the gold they needed to create the gold flecking to fix their ozone, which they did in South Africa. And then they appear to have.
While you're right there, let me cut you off, Dane. I want to bring this into the equation. I have a play on words, I love play on words. So the ancient, the Navajo or the Pueblos, also I think they call them the Anasazi, Anunnaki, Anasazi, Anunnaki. So Anasazi, this is Wikipedia, we know. Yeah. But anyways, here's a little Wikipedia version. But so Anasazi has come to mean ancient people, although the word itself is Navajo, meaning enemy ancestors. The Navajo word is Ana with like 2 words or 2 A's, Sazi. Ana means enemy, Sazi, ancestor.
Gotcha.
So what are they saying here? So like, you know what I mean? Anasazi, Anunnaki, and it means enemy ancestors. So if the Anasazi does have a play on words connection with Anunnaki, or they are enemy ancestors. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. Yeah. No, there's some of them Southwest tribes like the Zuni that have really kind of whacked out Okay, I've studied a lot of cultural anthropology. I've studied a lot of tribal people, and I know the different creation stories of a lot of different tribes. Okay, around the world, not just Native Americans, but around the world, and they all seem to have kind of a common thing where they just came from here. But then there's some tribes out there that have the star people thing going on big time, and the Zuni are one of those. And so, yeah, was there some kind of big intervention in the Southwest too? You know, at that time, and hey, there's gold there. We know there's gold there. A lot of people lately, my wife was telling me she watched something. They said the Aztec gold was actually originally from, they think, Utah, Arizona, the Four Corners area. So there was a lot of gold there. So it could be that they did go there, and have early contact with, some of these tribes. And yeah, and then other tribes in that area are, they don't all get along, put it that way, which is also pretty interesting because most times they did. Like, there's certain tribes. There's just certain tribes that nobody got along with. Like up here, it's a Crow. Nobody could get along with the Crow, and they're different too, and they have a different creation story too. And so it's like, did they? Yeah, was there some kind of planting of like these fake tribes to steer things? And who knows, right? That I don't know. I mean, there's so many interesting things about it, the ancient history that went on that we're not knowing about. But you have to take and look at like the general point of view of indigenous people. And again, they all say they came from here. Most for the most part, I'd say 90% of the tribes say that they actually came up out of the earth, or they just were here. They don't make these claims about, we came from outer space, like white people kind of do. I guess we do, right? Or they want us to, or we're going back to heaven, or I don't know. I'm pretty okay with right here. They could never understand that, but yeah, we're supposed to worship these sky gods and stuff, and it's all kind of part of the scam. It's all because that, well, of course, because that's where the Anunnaki and maybe the Anastasi came from, with stars that maybe, the Pleiades. And but were they friendly? And my evidence is no, they were not friendly. They forced us into agriculture. They forced the domestication of animals. That never happened here before either. All about 8,500 years ago, it all happened. Wikipedia, man, check it out. All over the world at the same time. At the same time, animals were domesticated and agriculture began at the same time in the Indus Valley, in Mesopotamia, which is Samaria, of course, but not just there, Central America, South America, and at the same time too, all these temples were built, whether it's Tikal or Machu Picchu or Angkor Wat, or all these temples were built, right? So to me, it says and then the sacrifices that, we see, and this is a big piece of the crown's propaganda. They want us to believe that, that the native people were sacrificing humans, and that was a big part of the thing. No, that's a fucking lie. There was no evidence of it except with the Aztecs and the Mayans, and that evidence, well, were they already there? Were they being forced by these people that lived in the city to do that? That's what I think. I think they were invaded, and they were taken over, and they were forced to build these big temples to these invaders, the sky gods, that then lived in the temple grounds and forced the people into agriculture around the temple grounds to feed them. And they did that everywhere. And then domesticate that cow too, so I can eat some of that. And no, literally, that's what I think happened. And that's what, to me, it's just the most. If you look at the preponderance of evidence, that's exactly what happened. It's so simple. And then they still just run the world today. They still do it, but they're more sophisticated now than they were back then, obviously.
I think what happened, Dean. Now they this bloodline, Nephilim, fallen angels, Anunnaki, whatever, they could have come from the stars, uh, via some type of, I don't know, craft or whatever. But I'm starting to lean more towards the past several years that maybe they came here. I don't know. We could get into the archon, the Gnostic side of things,
Mhm.
but the demiurge. But I feel
Mhm.
like we're dealing with more of a interdimensional, if that's even the
Yeah.
right word to say, some type of dark, malevolent force.
Yeah.
Somehow they pierce the veil into this world, this reality. I'm thinking that it's almost like a demonic possession. Let's say, I know that's probably a
Mhm.
terrible play on words to use,
No,
but it's almost like
no.
they pierced this reality, and maybe they didn't come physically from the stars, but they came through type of into this reality some through some means, and they took over. Maybe they came more in like a, I don't know if it's like a spiritual form or some type of dark energy, like archonic type mind parasite or something, and they took
Mm-hmm.
over certain figureheads here within
Mm-hmm.
this realm, this earth.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe these parasites latched on to some of these high political, high stature people like kings, queens, uh, whoever, and it's almost like a mind virus, like a computer virus. And then they were, it's hard to put my head around it because
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like these ancient gods or these Anunnaki or whatever were actually blood, like flesh and blood people just like you and I, but they had this mind virus or this dark malevolent interdimensional force that came in and latched on to certain people, and then it did something to their genetic makeup, I don't know, and
Mm-hmm.
then they started ruling that way. Maybe it was easier for them to travel that way and have to take over stealth mode that way to look like us, flesh and blood, while they had this mind, whatever is going on within the mind virus or whatever, and they took over. And that's what's been going on for thousands of years, is that we have certain these bloodlines that you talk about, so many other people talk about, David Icke and many others, is that, it's all about loose farming. They want to take our energy away, but why? And
Mm-hmm.
then people say that they're here. They've been here for a long time, but we that's usually related to the bloodline. The bloodline has been here for a long time. But if the bloodline's here, then if the bloodline's been here for thousands of years, then where did, if they did come from the stars or they did come into this reality as some type of extraterrestrial or alien or whatever, then where do they go? What do they look like? You know what I mean? That's why I think that somehow it's in here or something. It's within our genetic makeup. They somehow loosed their way into our genetic biome, into our genetic makeup, and they passed on the ones that they latched onto, the kings and queens and the patriarchs, monarchs, and all that back then. They, or even way before that, they passed on that lineage because somehow maybe that mind virus that's within them passed did something to the genetic makeup and it got passed on up into modern day. I don't. I know that's it's hard to put my it's hard to explain it because it's so
Yeah.
deep, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think maybe they didn't really come from the stars. Maybe they
Mm-hmm.
came here somehow through some type of,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, some type of schism going on with the mind. Some kind
Yeah,
of
no,
split.
it definitely is. I mean, they're not right, man. Whatever the case, they're not right. And if there's there could be a lot of different explanations for why. And then of course you go, well, where'd that nefarious thing come from? Or Archon, where'd that come from? Or why does it exist in the universe at all? Or there's all these questions, right? Like, how did it happen? Like, what kind of trauma, if they are? Because I think they are from. I think they're not from here because they did look different at first. They look different. I mean, you have to acknowledge that the pharaohs had,
Right.
freaking cone heads, right? And the Sumerians look. These people, the Anunnaki that came to Sumeria, all the depictions of them, they're pretty wacky looking, dude. They're not human. So I think they did come from there. But then you go, well, what happened in the universe that could have inflicted so much trauma on these people that gave them this mind virus? Because usually that's what happens to people. If they become evil because bad things happen to them, right? And it is true. It's like, that's why these families like the Rothschilds, it's just like an endless loop because yeah, I mean, they just grow up in these violent, abusive environments in these families, that these idle rich that they just don't have enough to do, so they end up being corrupt, just looking into corruptions of all kinds of corruptions to spend their days, right? Whatever it is. Yeah, and materialism does corrupt, and so the you know, like the Gnostics talked about this a lot, of course, in their Nag Hammadi scrolls, but also in the book, a lot of their books that got left out of the Bible at the Council of Nicaea in 225 AD, which is when the Emperor Constantine, who was a Habsburg, convened the Catholic Church and took it over. You know, that's when Peter's Church ended, Jesus Church ended, in the Holy Roman Empire at that point controlled the Catholic Church and made it into this. Well, it's a cover. It's a cover to hide behind, but it's also an evil operation that they could bludgeon people with. Not what it originally was supposed to be, obviously. Um, but that's when all that, and the Gnostic books were left out, and the Book of Enoch and all these books were left out too. But they warned of evil, that they like the Gnostics really thought that the world was kind of a, you know, generally an evil place. Like they didn't think it was all, not because of the humans or the natural nature, but because there was this force that they recognized. And by leaving that out of the Bible and by leaving that out of people's knowledge, it made us really, I think, naive about the nature of reality. Okay, and that's where we're more susceptible to whatever this is, a mind virus or an
Do you think
actual.
we're dealing with two different factions possibly that may be working with along the same goals, like this force alongside with maybe flesh and blood, whatever you want to call it, Anunnaki or whatever, that came from the
Yeah,
stars? You know what I mean?
I
That they came physically from the stars, and you had this other force that came here somehow pierced into this reality, you know?
yeah, I mean, but I think also, I think it's like flesh and blood, like I think they've deliberately done a eugenics thing to where, yeah, first they had to mate with they had to find humans to mate with that so they could look human, and then from time to time they have to go back the other way and reinforce the bloodline of whatever this is, this evil thing that came from outer space, this mind virus that they already had, I guess, or they have to reinforce that. So like that's what Prince William apparently was, because Diana, who was St. Clair and Collins and a Merovingian and a Tudor, had an affair with King Juan Carlos of Spain, who's a Bourbon, Merovingian, and Habsburg, and they reinforced the bloodline there. They went back the other way, and well, I don't think it's coincidence that William has an elongated skull, and he just does. So you can pretend he doesn't, I guess, if you want. That's fine. That's up to you. If you don't believe your own eyes, feel sorry for you, but it's an elongated skull, my friends. And just take a look at it. So he has that. So they had, and he's bald when he was like, I don't know, when he was 10 years old, he was bald. That's weird. Something about baldness. Yeah, there is something about baldness that is a genetic trait of these things as well, I will say. Um, yeah, no, yeah. Animals are furry. We're animals. See, the thing is, we're animals, okay? And that's what I believe. And I'm not disparaging us in any way, saying that I'm trying to flatter you, because animals are so much better than humans, even at this point. But we are animals, and we have the capability to be as good as animals. Put it that way. But we're not living up to our humanity. So we're acting more like aliens, shall we say? We're acting more like the invading class, who taught us to, yeah, I don't know, all kinds of stupid shit, and it still affects us. And that's where, yeah, okay, it kind of, but that's the whole idea. It is like a cult, and the whole purpose of this, whatever this is, if it's off planet, if it's a mind virus, if it's somebody got abused by his parents, and now he's got all this money, he wants to take it out on the planet, and whatever it is, in the end, you know what, it doesn't really matter what it is, because it's evil and it's abusing us, the rest of us, and it's an enemy, and we have to acknowledge that there's this enemy that we have to confront. And that's where the Gnostics knew that, and that's where, we got to get real, people. We're living like infants. We live like, people don't grow up. Did you notice that? Like in the Western world, people don't really grow up. They live like kids. They act like little kids. Like they're that stupid and naive about what what really goes on in this world. And it's just not a way to. It's like if analogy I always use, if a grizzly bear, because I did a lot of backcountry camping in Montana in my 30s and 20s, and back when I went to college there, and always it was put food in the trees, the grizzly bears. Be careful. Keep a clean campsite. All that stuff. If your girlfriend is having a period, don't go camping. Things like that. So you just look, if a bear is running at you in the woods and it's running at you, you have to acknowledge that it's there. It is running at you. So it's the same with these lizard people things, whatever. If this happened on this earth, and you've watched this whole progression, and you've taken it apart now, and which I have, and have you know figured out who it is exactly who I think's running the world, and this is what I think anyway is who it is this one bloodline, and that America is not the most powerful country in the world at all. It's just a junior partner. It's a Hessianized mercenary force for the global oligarchy, which is based mostly in Europe, which is why we should move away from Europe in general, and be friends with Russia, be friends with China, be friends with Iran, and fuck the Europeans. Mostly because that's where the power is still emanates from this bloodline mostly. Now, it's not say it's not other places, it is.
Maybe the
But
bloodline is actually just the offshoot, or maybe it's one and the same of this force. You know what I mean? Because
mhm,
maybe,
mhm,
and that's
mhm,
how,
mhm.
and it's almost like in disguise, and it's like it over the
Yeah.
eons, the centuries, it kind of created this,
Mhm,
whatever this force is, but it's within, it's this force is controlling them because it manifested through the bloodline, you know,
mhm.
over
Yeah.
time. It's like the bloodline evolved, or whatever's in their genetic makeup, these Nephilim,
Mhm,
fallen angels, whatever. It's like it evolved throughout time and
mhm,
created this loose
mhm,
harvesting force that's an offshoot of the bloodline, you know.
mhm. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
But
it's pretty far out, and it's like, I mean, you really kind of wish it wasn't something we had to contend with, but it also explains why, as you be growing up, and becoming awake, and you're like, why is there all this injustice? It kind of explains why there's all this injustice, and it kind of and so in a way it's liberating, I guess, the knowledge that this bloodline exists, the knowledge that this doesn't represent humanity in general, that we're not actually, this isn't actually the way we are, this isn't the way we're supposed to be. And you also have to remember that there's a benevolent creator of everything beautiful, and that is calling us into combat against these things all the time, and is in opposition to it all the time, and wants us to wake up and win. And there must be something to it, because yeah, this is why these things keep happening. The Young Dryas and Great Flood and the meteor hitting the Yucatan and dinosaurs going extinct, and all these things that have happened, these big old cataclysmic events, Atlantis disappears, had to have, they happen for a reason. And it has to be some sort of, the only reason I could think of is because I know the benevolent force is more powerful, because all you got to do is just, you know, watch a baby being born or take a walk in the woods, and just whatever. There's so many everything is made perfect in this world if we just quit fucking with it. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm also really an outdoors person. I'm a survivalist. You could say I'm into all that stuff, man. And that element of it is in my life. And the Indians taught me a lot, man. And growing up on a farm taught me a lot too. And living in the country my whole life taught me a lot. Most part my whole life. So I know that there's this force that's way more powerful than this. I mean, Anunnaki bunch, and it just kind of tolerates them and lets them exist, and lets the fallen angels and Lucifer and exists, and lets the archons exist. And why does it let it exist? And it's like that's where you get into the more spiritual parts of it, where
Is it
we
because
have,
this benevolent force that the whatever, it's like they know that the best way for us to prevail is for human race to have their trial by fire moment. And this is
yeah,
our
you
trial
have
by
to.
fire moment that we are facing with this malevolent force.
That's right. What are you going to learn? What are you going to stand up for? Are you going to stand up for good? Are you going to stand up for humanity? Are you going to stand up for the animals? Are you going to stand up for the earth? Or are you going to stand up for the people wearing them suits and inviting you to their money events and passing out money to you and buying you off? And
How do
are
you
you going
best
to honor
learn though,
that?
Dean? How do you best learn? Like your kids, you now or in the past, you learn through trauma, through
Yeah,
trials. You learn
right.
from mistakes.
The only way you learn, really.
And
Letting
that's
your head
only what
down.
makes you become a better version of you from the past is learning if you learn from your
Yeah,
mistakes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you got to cleanse yourself of all that rubbish that it's this is what they call bondage, right? This is what the word bondage is real important. Because we're living in bondage, and we live in bondage of who we are. We we've been taught to hate ourselves. We've been taught to hate again, hate the people, or doubt at the very least, doubt the people's ability to overcome much of anything. Um, we've been taught to doubt the supernatural. We've been we've been taught to doubt reality. Okay, so like we used to know we could just talk to bears and that it could have been your grandpa. It was pretty likely that it probably was your grandpa if it showed up and it was a bear. We just knew that. Okay, that was true, and things like that. And now it's just we doubt everything. And this what they did is first they hid behind religion, and they replaced our animistic understanding of the earth, which was pretty solid, pretty sound. 100,000 years of just observation, inference, conclusion. That's science. That's all it is. The Indians were the scientists. They were the only people that have ever acted like scientists, really, because now it's all about, it's more like crown preconception, read it in a history book, and then no check on, no observation to check it. Therefore, no inference made. I'll just accept what was written down here by the Royal Society of what the fuck ever, which is what it is. It's all Royal Society. It's all the Bloodline's version of this is who you are. And they created the philosophers, the John Locke's, the Thomas Malthus, the Thomas Hobbes of the world who told us that the world was a dark place and dangerous and nature was this forbidding place, and we can't all exist on this earth together. There's no way. So pretty soon we're talking about like sterilizing poor people, which is what Malthus, these people were, and they were all funded directly by the bloodline, directly by princes or kings, or they traveled with the royalty. These people did. They're promoted as this is the way you should think. This is the way. This is your philosophy, peasant. Accept it. This is how you have to think. The world's a dark place. You should be at odds with each other because of that. But see, it's all just everything they tell us to believe is to justify their heinous acts up to that point on us and on the earth. The violence that they've committed on us has to be justified with their philosophies. So they say might is right. Just check it out. But even Darwin, who was funded by the crown, a Freemason, all that stuff, even he had to come up with the conclusion after going around the world that cooperation within a species was the key to survival. That was his main thesis, even though that's just buried nowadays because it doesn't serve the purpose of the oligarchy. That what serves their purpose is survival of the fittest. Yeah. It's always going at loggerheads with each other, always fighting. It's in our nature to fight, and we're so petty, and it's just all such bullshit and dark. It's just darkness, and that's the bondage right there, my friend. That's the bondage that keeps us doubting, that keeps us under their thumb, that keeps us believing them over God or over Creator or over the benevolent force, the good angel, whatever you want to call it. I don't even care. It's none of my business what you believe, man. But as long as you believe that in goodness and you don't surrender to the darkness and the bondage, and the guilt and the shame and all of that goes along with that bondage. So they use religion first to usurp the animistic worldview that we have, that this kind of egalitarian way we did things. Very egalitarian way we did things. Women on councils. There were no tribal chiefs. That's a whole white man's, well, I shouldn't say white man's, I should say crown. that's a crown invention, the chief of a tribe. There's no chiefs, man. It's a council. It's always a council. It's elders of men and women respected by a tribe who are respected because of the knowledge they've accrued over a lifetime. Imagine that. Respect your elders. But, you know, they also couldn't be a schmuck, and you also, you know, I mean, you had to be respected. So live like that forever and ever, and then to just all of a sudden be put under this pyramid structure where there's one at the top and many at the bottom, and you know, you've seen it on the dollar bill. Okay, that's the idea. That's what happened, and that's how we were enslaved. And so it's most of it is a mind virus, is a mental slavery. It's like you can, yeah, we ended slavery, you know, which most of the East Indian Company and the Royal Africa Company. Royal Africa Company was the number one slave company. It was wholly owned by King James, and yeah, so we ended that, and we ended the genocide of the Indians, sort of, not really, because we still have poverty all over these reservations and alcoholism that we, you know, there's a white liquor store just outside the res where they can all go and get a bottle, just like there's liquor stores all over Compton or, you know, any poor black neighborhood. Why you think that is? Why you think the drugs go through all the poor neighborhoods? Because, you know, they want to kill those people. Okay. And plus, then they can say, oh, look at those black people. They run all the drugs. Yeah. No, the CIA runs all the drugs. It's just maybe some black people did the end delivery thing so that you could kill their people because you like to kill black people and brown people. We know about you Nazis, and we know how you really are. And they are Nazis. They're Aryan Nazis, and there's a whole star people kind of like they think they're better than us. They really do. And it's all about being white. Like the Japanese, even they like to be white. All the women, they put white powder on their face. It's weird. It's like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. Remember that? He's like going, but the royal bloodline is the originator of the white supremacy, and there is white supremacy, and it originates from this bloodline, and it's more of a interstellar supremacy, I would argue, than a white supremacy, if you want to be accurate about it. Um, and a bloodline, it's like you're not part of the bloodline. You know, that's why they're obsessed with DNA. You know, all this DNA stuff and all
Yep.
this, like, ancestry.com. They want you to send them your DNA, find out who you are, find out where you fall. You know, are you a member of the bloodline? Oh, if you are, then maybe we can approach you and recruit you into the Freemasons and things like this. See, and that's exactly how it works. So they're obsessed with that bloodline. That's what tells me that is the, you know, when you're that obsessed with keeping this bloodline or whatever, then that must be a pretty damn powerful thing. And I think it's the most powerful thing. And I don't know details about where it came from. I just know it ain't from here, man, and it ain't whatever it is. It's what's causing the evil in this world.
So for the last time, you know, that we have remaining, I want to kind of tie in, you know, some of the AI, transhumanism, what we got going on now, what we're facing. But what I
Sure.
think what we're dealing with, Dean, is, you know, to try to tie everything in. You know, there's a war, there's a
Yep.
spiritual war, whatever you want to call it, that's been going on behind the scenes for thousands of years, been in the works for thousands of years. This unseen force, whatever this force is, the bloodline, the Nephilim, the ancient pretender gods that forgot who Jack Barringer talked about, the fallen hybrid bloodlines, ETs, or all the above. You know, I feel like this force is putting all cards on the table, and it's an age old agenda. It's like they're in a quickening effect to
Mm-hmm.
fulfill something.
Mm-hmm.
So, is one of the goals of this force, these brotherhood bloodline elites, the crown, to transcend Earth and man to live in a transhuman AI driven Blade Runner type dystopian world? Do they wish to rebuild a bigger and better Atlantis? Are these brotherhood elites, aka Nephilim hybrids, trapped here on Earth since they lost all their technologies through ancient cataclysms, etc.? Maybe they need us to build this transhuman AI driven Blade Runner type dystopian world so that they can eventually have the means and tools at their disposal to lead this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe these metaphorical or not so metaphorical fallen angels need this type of world we are sprinting towards so that these dark factions can get their wings back. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think so, and it's a kind of a terraforming going on, I think, and Yeah, they're not happy, obviously.
Whatever's going on there, it's like we're in a quickening effect. You know,
And we're in a quickening thing, and
over 100 years ago, we just developed flight, and boom,
mhm.
now we have all this. You
Now
know,
we got all this. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you think about the internet. When did the internet happen? 1995 or something? I mean, it's like 30 years ago. It's crazy, and here we are. And but it's a quickening, and it's like it is like a cult. So I think you have to understand, like it's like the Borg or whatever. It's like it just wants to take things over, and it's kind of all about math and conquest, and it's really weird. It's not human. Again, it's not human. It's not from here. We can't really understand it, maybe because it's like, but it definitely wants to. It wants us to be machines. I think. I mean, people worry about AI. So it's going to take human jobs. Well, that's the least of my worries. My biggest worry is that AI will take humans, and it will bring humans into the machine and then make them into machines, make them into zombies that have no empathy, have no love, have no compassion, just machines. It's all about math, and it's all consumption, math.
I
Just
have I
the
have a
most
quote from your
base
chapter
things. Go ahead.
from chapter 44 of your Nephilim Crown 5G Apocalypse book. You said, "quote Wetware meant human beings, uh, and other living creatures, which would be ionized and programmed on a highly individualized DNA and electromagnetic frequency basis with the hardware and software to create a completely integrated and controllable 5G grid full spectrum dominance mind controlling weapon system. Artificial intelligence would permeate the grid, seeking to self replicate while assimilating humanity." End quote. Powerful, man. You got a lot of powerful shit in that book.
Thanks, man. Thanks for getting that book, by the way, and for reading a couple things out of it. Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, that's what I believe about, and then the vaccines, which hadn't occurred when I wrote that book yet. Um, I believe that the vaccines mainly, yeah, it's gonna kill people. It's gonna kill. It's kind of a cull program. If it's mostly gonna, it's gonna take out liabilities that the government doesn't have to. It's gonna kill the creditors because that's what they do. They just come around. They just kill the creditors. We're the creditors because this country's 37 trillion dollars in debt, and so every liability that they have to pay out social security wise or anything else down the road is they don't want it. So there's a big depopulation thing going on. But also with the shots, a big thing, and maybe just a bigger thing, is that they literally are turning people into antennas. Antennas, but also receivers, both. So that's what that was referred to. But I really think that they have the ability now to mind control people using electromagnetic frequencies, and the extent of the mind control I don't know, but I know they can change people's moods. I know they can make people angry. They've proven this with these acoustic weapons that the Pentagon marched out back in the 90s already. And they have the ability to program people, I think, and they also have they also want that signal to bounce off you through the vaccine, the mRNA, because it has lithium or it has um, graphite in it, and that's very good material for that. So it's cheaper to just vaccinate people and have them walking around and have them the signal bouncing off them than it is to build all these towers in neighborhoods and piss people off, which they've done a lot of too. But I do believe that's a big part of that. And it is full spectrum dominance because they don't have to anymore deploy National Guard. Back in the old days, or back in the old days, it was the knights or their knights or whoever. Throughout the history, they've had armies that have deployed to crush opposition and crush peasant rebellions and things like this. Well, if you can get to a point where you can get into the minds of the peasants and you can make them content not to rebel and tell them all these lies about how great things are for them, even though they suck. And take your soma. Don't forget, take your soma. And if you can do that, then you don't ever have to deploy those resources. So it saves you a lot of money. in the long run. And that's really what that's the way these people think. It's all about efficiency. Again, it's all about math. It's like mathematically, how can we have a peaceful world where where we have no opposition to our um, increasing concentration of power? And why did they push us into the cities? And why did they push us into these different things I talked about earlier? Because they stole our land. So it's all about, short story, they stole our land. If you want to know what happened, they stole our land. People, doesn't matter where they came from, who they are, what they stole our land. You don't have any land anymore, do you? Nobody has land anymore, do they? Even though 200, 300 years ago, everybody in this country had land in this country, and go way back in history, and everybody had land everywhere because there was no private land ownership. People just used the land, and they had this thing called territoriality, where okay, if some tribe strayed into your hunting territory and got a little close on you and hunted, you had the right to send them packing.
And if you
But it
do
was always
have land now, they steer these hurricanes towards your way and just knock out
yeah, there
your
you
land,
go.
and then they buy it
And
up.
then they'll take that land. Exactly. Then they'll take that land too. But it's been, and they did it with the farm crisis in my part of the woods in the 80s already. And they've done it through different means, different times, weather and drought, and yeah, grain prices, and I mean, all kinds of ways to steal land. But they've perfected that, that's for sure. So I think like 300 years ago in this country, 99% of the people lived on the land. And now it's just the opposite. It's like less than 1% of the people live on the land. So urbanization has to be, if you're running a revolutionary government, what you'd want to do first is land reform. You know, and I'm a big proponent of land reform. We should do land reform. These are the kinds of things that the real left wants to talk about. Okay, so let's do land reform. Let's go to Ted Turner Ranch in Wyoming and Montana, and let's like just take his fucking land and give it away. Oh, if you want to pay him, okay, fine. If you feel bad just taking his land, I get. I mean, I guess crocodile tears for Ted Turner or any of these assholes. But it's like land reform is a viable option. It's happened all over the world and in countries all over the world, and why it's going to have to happen here. It's going to have to happen again. Unwinding this is just the continual theft and monetization of our labor and our resources and our land and everything just that they've done is just like, when's it going to end? And then it has to be unwound. So you have not only have to do land reform, but you have to break up the cartels. So if Trump's wanted to issue an executive order, one of them should be, break up the oil cartel. There's 4 horsemen, I call them, that run the oil. There's 3 insurance companies. There's 3 hospital chains. There's 2 grocery chains now, I think. I mean, it's just you could go antitrust, like for like a year, and you still wouldn't have it done. You wouldn't have your job done yet. They've done so much to this, and this has all been done under the free market and under Reaganomics and all these people that love Reagan. And okay, if you love that, if you love what happened in the last 40 years in this country, and your land was taken away, and your wages didn't go up, and companies were allowed to get just huge and charge you whatever they want for insurance or groceries or cars or houses now, or if you like that, then hey, let's free market, baby. But if you don't like that, then we got to go just the opposite way. And see, that's why I don't get on. This is why I don't get invited to conferences, because my solution is nationalize this stuff. Nationalize the oil company. You have a United States oil company, just like Norway has a company called State Oil. Norway is the most highest standard of living of any country in the world. Why? Because state oil money helps everyone in that country have free healthcare, free education through PhD level, things like that, which we don't have. We don't think we even deserve to have it because we hate ourselves. Americans really hate themselves. They Americans like retribution. Like, oh yeah, he deserved that. He should have to pay that. All the time. It's just like, instead of like, can we just help people? Why can't we just give people stuff for free? These assholes get shit for free all the time.
Hell, Prince Philip has his own oil company. The late Prince Philip, Philip 66.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
he's at Bartlesville, Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, they literally do though. Real Dutch shell.
British Petroleum, and
Yeah, British Petroleum.
what
And that's why we went to Iraq to fight. It wasn't for American interest. It was so British Petroleum and Royal Dutch Shell could get the contracts. And
Halliburton through Cheney, and
yeah,
you know,
and Cheney's we found a relative of the Windsors and Bushes and both it's all one big club, buddy. I mean, if this is all bloodline stuff, and I don't know. So we're just gonna see like where Trump shakes out in this whole thing.
What I think with this bloodline, rather than being guided by, like we talked earlier, by some type of non-human force or whatever, they're pushing this, like the artificial intelligence and everything that involved that uses AI, such as CBDC, mRNA vaccines, Neuralink, digital ID, smart cities, biometric borders, etc. So are these and others related to AI, the Brotherhood elite's attempt at building and finishing the modern day Tower of Babel?
Yeah, good one, man. It is because we don't know where this came from. We don't know where the AI came from. Um, and it seems to be integral to their this quickening that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, okay, yeah, we've got all this, and now we're gonna make it happen. And they don't even hide anymore. You just see people coming out. You'll see if people pay really close attention, you'll see a lot of Khans, Khan, Shah, Shah, and Singh, Singh. You'll see a lot of those surnames as far as like when you talk about like government people or reporters, or they're marching out. In other words, these bloodline families, they used to just kind of hide in the background, and now they're actually wanting to run things. It seems like.
Khan is the bloodline family,
Yeah,
Khan.
Khan. Yeah, like
So,
as in,
so who has kind of taken over the professional wrestling scene? One All Elite Wrestling, who's the competitor of the World Wrestling
yeah,
Entertainment, is Tony Khan and
mhm.
Shahid Khan.
Right. Is that the same guy who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars? Maybe.
His
Oh,
father,
his
I
father.
think,
Yeah.
his
There you go,
father,
man.
which is Shahid.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Tony
Yeah. Yeah.
Khan's father, which is Shahid Khan, owns the
There you go.
Jacksonville
There you go.
Jaguars.
There's an example. Also of London, Sadiq Khan, is the Prime Minister of Pakistan who was recently overthrown. What's his name? His last name's Khan. But they're coming, and see the Aga Khan Foundation is who is the foundation. It's a huge foundation. It's very powerful, a lot of money, and they train all the Muslim terrorists for British intelligence and the Mossad and the CIA. Um, Funded by the Saudis. The Saudis are always the paymaster. That's their role. That's what they do. I mean, they have the money. They have the oil money. That's the quid pro quo. We buy your oil. You take that money, recycle it back into Wall Street investments, covert operations for the CIA, and so forth. And these religious schools, these madrasas that the Aga Khan Foundation funds to teach this political Islam, which Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, Louis Farrakhan's people, they're part of that. Um, and it all goes back to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is in the Saudi house of Aramco. And Aramco is the oil company that they say the Saudis own it now, all, but I don't buy it. I still think Exxon and Mobil, and they're all part of it. And if not, they have all the contracts they own all the refineries in that Saudi Arabia and the plastics companies in Saudi Arabia, and everything else is owned by these other companies. So it doesn't really matter who owns Aramco, but anyway, that's where the Muslim Brotherhood is located. And then the Freemasons, of course, it's the city of London. So, that's where the Freemasons headquarters is, I'd say. But these are secret societies that both work for the bloodline, and the sons of Abraham, the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims, and all this stuff. But these are and the reason they need secret societies is pretty obvious, because they have a lot of things to hide, which we're talking about here. But yeah, the cons are a big one. Yeah, and you'll start seeing this stuff. You'll start seeing, I think the head of Wells Fargo now, his name is David Wheel. He's part of the David Wheel family, which is part of the Lazard family, which is one of the 8 families that owns the Federal Reserve. So that's an old Italian family, black nobility family, the David Wheel family. And you're going to see more and more of this happening. They're going to come out of the closet and want to just directly run things and get you initiated into their AI cult. And that's why the quickening, and that's why the computers, and that's why addicting people to the technology is so important. Because if you want to create a world where it's literally like math. It's just machines, and there's no human empathy, and there's just everybody's just competing against each other. It's like this ultimate form of like hyper capitalism, I guess. Like it's like the Hunger Games is what it is. It's like the Hunger Games. And but if you want to bring that in, you have to get people on board with your value system, which is well, they don't really have any values. They don't have any values. It's just eat more, consume more, um, get more of my share. It's really, it's like it's a very simple machine. These things are very simple machines. They're not like us. They're not human. They're not as complex as we are. They can't really think in terms of spiritual ways of thinking or benevolence or you have to understand that about these things. They don't have the ability to do that. I don't even think. And so that's what they want to turn us into that. And that's the essence of transhumanism. To me, it's not so much, that you're gonna see some guy walking around with, a robot arm and you need the oil can to oil him up. It's more about your soul, man. It's more about like where are you gonna be? Are you gonna sail off into, you know, mathematics land with no values? Don't care, don't give a damn about, anything else really, but just your own, I don't know what even. It's not even, you don't even care about yourself actually. At that point, you hate yourself so bad that you just become part of the Borg and you just want to, yeah, sort of snuff out all life, all spiritual goodness. It's terrible. So that's what they're trying to bring in, and it has to be stopped. It has to be. It's gonna. I think it's already failing on its own. Everyone's really like ooh AI, and Trump's saying 500 million. Well, nothing, the government's not pledging any of that. Musk says it ain't gonna happen. It can't happen. They don't have enough money. Musk's rockets are falling out of the sky. They're blowing up over the Turks and Caicos. His electric cars are blowing up on charging stations, or just driverless cars are running into people and causing traffic accidents. Um, I don't know. I just don't think it's working out that well. 2% of the people are getting vaccine boosters this year. I mean, I just don't think it's working out that well for them. And that's where I think that's important because that's because of us. That's because of the resistance. That's because of the people that have taken it upon ourselves to say, you know what, we've had enough of this shit. And that's what God wants. So that's what we keep doing, and that's when we just keep telling the truth instead of all these games about egos and money. And you'll make it, man. You'll be fine. You'll make enough money to make your way. You just do the right thing in this world. I've learned that over and over and over in my life. I've never wanted for anything. I've always done the right thing. And they say you can't do that. And but yeah, look at you sitting there doing the right thing and making a living at it. So and
I
it
did.
doesn't have, there you go. Unbelievable.
Let me end with this and get your final thoughts, and we can end it with this. What I'm about to read. I didn't know I was going to come across. I was going to bring this into the discussion if I'd had time to, but you brought up something with the soul. Uh, I think that's one variable of the agenda of this transhuman agenda, this AI transhuman dystopian agenda, is something to do with the soul. And here, bear with me. What if one of the sinister agendas at play here is to terrorize the women and children through sex trafficking, terrorize the population through false flag terrorism, mind control in the media, television, about doom and gloom, everything, how terrible this place is, etc. Because maybe their in-game scenarios to somehow disembark and take away the soul, spirit, etc. Think how much trauma it would be to an unborn developing fetus during a woman's pregnancy if she is in a constant state of fear, survival mode, and trauma. There's no telling what it is doing to that unborn baby, possibly eradicating or hijacking the soul of the baby to almost be like a non-player character in a video game once the baby is born. Maybe they don't want people who are born into this world to have souls and are very spiritual in nature. If the baby is born without a soul or some type of hijacked type of soul, then it would be easier to mind control that baby without the powers that be having to work so hard by their indoctrination of that child over the years. And on top of all that, we have the invisible electromagnetic smart grid that encompasses our planet like a digital prison matrix. How do we know that this soup of frequencies will not eventually keep things from coming in like a soul or spirit? On top of that, how do we know that the rollout of mRNA vaccines, uh, and how they're trying to push that now even more with like trying to using mRNA to cures for cancer and everything else will not impact future generations where that unborn child in the developmental phase in the fetus of the pregnant woman somehow keeps the soul or spirit from coming into the child with all these frequencies, this electromagnetic soup. Maybe these mRNA vaccines and everything else I listed will keep the soul or spirit from coming into the child, possibly, or at least put a damper like effect on the child's soul. What's your thoughts on that, Dane? Because this is very dangerous, not just in the present moment, but will only get worse, intensify with future generations down the line, you know?
Yeah, it's a really important thing. And also, I think the ability to reincarnate or, go to heaven or however you want to put it, but the
Because if
ability
we
to.
have that spirit, that fight, that soul in
Mhm,
us,
mhm,
we'll
mhm,
always
mhm.
fight back. So maybe
Right.
this is one variable of the agenda is to somehow damper
Sure.
our spirit or maybe even take away with all these we
Absolutely.
don't know. Maybe these frequencies down
Yep.
the road, we don't know
Yep.
what it's going to do with. Could it keep that life force, that soul, that spirit from coming? I don't know. It's just a
They're
dangerous road
trying.
to go down
They're,
to, man.
yeah, no, they're definitely trying. And then these vaccines, I mean, I swear to God, now that these kids are getting all these vaccines, I mean, they're doing something to people. They're doing already. Now they call this generation, what do they call it? Oh, they got Generation X, Generation Z. Well, they call this Generation Beta, right?
Beta
So
test.
what does that mean? I mean, there you have it, and there you have it. Just what you're saying is what it means. And they're trying. They're giving these mothers vaccinations ahead of the pregnancy now. That's the big thing now, right? Get pregnant. Pregnant women get vaccinated. I mean, it used to just be like leave us alone until we used to have a baby. Then you start shooting the kid up. Me and you, my age, we had 7 shots or something, not very many. And then it got worse and worse and worse. And now it's just like, yeah, vaccinate the woman ahead of the kid even being born.
And
So
what about that?
some reason they're
And what
doing
about
that.
that baby that's being born through the vaccinated mother? And they could do things to that baby then and to the mother, but just
Yep,
think of generations after the fact with all these mRNA vaccines
that's the beta part.
and this electromagnetic soup that we live in.
Yeah, that's the beta part. And yeah, plus they're all tuned into that. They're in tune with the unnatural electromagnetic frequencies. See, because what you're talking about with the soul, I would interpret that as like a disconnection from your natural frequency. Like maybe that's the soul, maybe that's the essence of it. Like when you
Mm-hmm.
when you operate at a frequency that God gave you as a human being, and then you're in tune, and then you have that what we call a soul. And maybe when you're out of tune and you're hijacked, yeah, by external waves, maybe it has the ability to usurp that, and well, obviously it does. It disrupts it. That's why I mean, and that's why I think if you look at people now, like there's so much depression, and there's so much like it's almost like they're really going after our will. I feel like they're going after our will to survive, even you know. Um, there's just so much pain and there's so much yeah, people are feeling it, and yeah, the world's crazy too, but there's something else they're doing to people, like as far as moods, or they're turning people really, yeah, like they don't have a lot of hope. They don't have a lot of hope in themselves. They don't, yeah, they're kind of giving up. It's just like it's happening. And I know that the towers have something to do with it. I don't know exactly what or how or where. Nobody does, except maybe Crown Castle, who put all the towers up. We could ask Crown Castle; they could tell you. There's one company that owns a lot of them now called SBA Monarch too. So it's like Project Monarch, yes, which was MK Ultra's central program, and that was about basically introducing Satanism into a person's, um, making them Satanists. That's what they openly talked about it in the CIA's thing, and so that's what they're doing. This is the initiation program. This is Satanism. A big part of that is to give up on humans, especially yourself, because why is that satanic? Because God created you, Holmes. You don't ever want to give up on yourself, you asshole. You fucking asshole. That much disrespect for God, huh? That you're just going to give up on yourself. Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really. So it's that bad that I have to use them words because it's that bad. It's serious. So you don't ever give up on yourself, man. You don't ever, because that's disrespectful for God, man. That's disrespectful to God that
It's
made
an
you.
aversion of reality, man. It's
It's an version
and
of reality.
and hell, and then with
You
the
got everything you
and,
need, man.
and then the old Project Stargate, back in the day, and
Yeah.
now Trump comes up with the Stargate. Like what?
Yeah.
Hold up. what's going on
Bingo.
here? You
Yeah,
know,
no, it's bad.
like
It's bad. It means exactly what it says. Stargate. I mean, so yeah,
is
it's
it
it, but
a
again, it's right on the
Stargate to eventually
ocean,
let
new
things through, man?
space, bunch of billionaires come into the room and just tell you what's up. And oh yeah, we're gonna have a vaccination for every little problem you have. Don't you worry. And that's what it's all about. Because with injections of foreign artificial matter, they can, yeah, they're literally trying to turn us into, computers. They're trying to take away our will, take away our humanity, take away our sacredness and our soul and all the good stuff. And so it's really everything's on the line right now, man. So like I always say, you can't sit on the fence no more. You have to pick a side. You have to either on our side or you're on their side. And it sounds very simplistic, but it kind of is at this point. It's just that simple. God or the devil. You pick it. If you go along with any of this stuff in the mainstream of society at this point, any of it at all, you're stooping to the devil worshiping level, man. It's so you got to be so careful about. You really just need to disengage, man, from the whole thing as much as you can, because it's awash with Satanism and all kinds of just bad stuff. So yeah, you got to stay in touch with yourself, with nature, with um, the good things, man, because that's our power. That's where we get our power. We have infinite amount of power. We have an infinite ability to do whatever we want to do. But we have to recognize that we can't give it away, and we can't say, "Oh no, these people are more powerful than we are. These people are more powerful than God." So I'm so scared. That's why I'm never scared. I'm not scared of these things because I don't have to be scared, because
I
I know
don't.
God is more powerful, and I know good's more powerful than evil. It just is. And I've had that experience over and over and over and over and over in my life. And you know, it just is. I mean, just I can't even tell you, like, every single day almost it proves out in my life anymore that good's more powerful than evil. And but you have to. It's like you wake up in the morning and you can either say, oh, everything's fine. I'm fine. Everything's good. Look how lucky. Look how grateful I am for everything I have. Or you can wake up in the morning and just invent all kinds of problems you have, and that again, at some point, that's like satanic. It's heavy, but it's like you can't be that way, man. You
I
have to be
think people
grateful.
are
You have
burnt
to.
out. I think people are burnt out
They're
on a
burnt out
spiritual
as
level.
hell. Yeah,
They're
they
burnt
are.
out on this constant bombardment of everything. Through
Well,
mind
they are.
control,
Yeah.
propaganda, through the
Oh God.
vaccines, everything. Through
You go to a gas station without watching TV. They put a little screen in the gas pump. So yeah, when you're pumping gas, they want you watching TV too. So no, you have to shut that down, step away. Me too, man. I watch that TV, man, because it's just lies nonstop. And if I've spent too much time, surfing the internet, same way, because they still control the majority of the stuff on it. But yeah, you have to limit your time, limit the information you take in, and maximize the information you put out. Like, start thinking of yourself more as an actor instead of a victim, or like you're just going to be the one that sits there, what takes it all in, or are you going to be the one that makes it happen? And if more and more people could just be the ones that make it happen, in a good way, that's where we're going to win. But it has to be that energy, and that it has to gain traction. And you have to really start being proactive again instead of reactive, I guess what I'm saying, because people have got very reactive. And that's a satanic deal, man. When you start getting reactive, you're much more susceptible to all that bad stuff. So stay strong, stay proactive, and be the one better. Be the one that makes it better. Everyone has that, do that. And plus, it's a lot more fun, right? Like
yeah,
when you feel like you're doing stuff, at least you feel like, hey, man, this is okay. Now I know why I'm here. And this is why we're here. I don't know why else we'd be here. I mean, if it wasn't to fight the demiurge or the archons, or the bad dudes, whatever you want to call it. If
hmm
it wasn't to do that, what else would it be? I mean, why else would we be here? But to fight the good fight. That's just the way I see things. But I'm just a stupid South Dakota farmer. What do I fucking
Oh
know,
no,
right?
man, that was a perfect way to end this discussion, man. I don't have a feeling this isn't going to be our last. discussion, and I look forward to seeing more posts on your Substack. And where else would you like people to follow you? Your Substack, and
That's really all I got anymore, man. Is a Substack, and then yeah, if you want, my 7 books are all at Amazon. You can just Dean Henderson Amazon. You can get them at Barnes and Noble too. If you hate Amazon, the only reason I do it there is because I self-publish, and I have to. I mean, nobody's gonna publish these books except me, and I can do it on Amazon without so far without getting censored.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and really appreciate you having me, man, and keep up the good work too, my friend. And yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime, man.